So here's my thoughts on Elizabeth Holmes. Yeah, I saw the puff pieces that are going out, and I assume she's hired a good PR firm to work on the public image, and they're now doing the rounds before she goes to jail. And look, fair enough. I can let go of the judgment of any person. I don't care if someone's going to jail. Like, shit happens. I know drug addicts and people that are stolen, and, you know, like particularly in friends communities who've been through addiction and, you know, work with people healing trauma and all that kind of stuff. My sister and my mum actually both work in correctional centers. I do trauma work with inmates. So zero judgment about someone going to jail. That is what it is. But the interesting thing about Elizabeth, well, number one, it was really interesting what I saw was in the piece in the, I think it was the New York Times, you know, she said something along the lines of, my focus now on my children. Yeah, I think at least one, possibly two. And so the inference was focus on me as a mother rather than evil mastermind, you know, who defrauded investors. Cheers. And sometimes smart people do dumb things. I can forgive her for that. But where I found it interesting, what I chuckled about was I saw as she had the kind of like rise, someone who people call, oh, they're like Steve Jobs and they have a reality distortion field, is pretty much someone who just speaks their truth of their reality with so much conviction that they influence you. They make other people believe it. And she could have been a church leader. She could have been a cult leader. Companies are cults. We know that, right? Companies are cults. They're just collections of people. But the interesting thing is where the kind of like narcissistic type tendencies come into it is when someone starts believing their bathwater is better than anybody else's. And the interesting thing about her is where they were saying, oh, she's got this reality distortion field. When I hear that, I just think, oh, she doesn't have enough people around her to give her the checks and balances to keep things within reality. Surprise, surprise, it turns out she was selling things that weren't exactly reality. So I think it's an example of unintegrated leadership and unintegrated visionary as an entrepreneur. The interesting thing about someone who has those traits of narcissistic type personality, that's how someone will gaslight you, is because they believe with their convictions so much that they're right and you're wrong, or they're righteous and you're bad, that they will convince you to believe their reality after enough wearing you down. And that's like gaslighting is a tool. You can call it gaslighting through one lens. Another lens is being inspirational. Same stuff. It's like, I believe it so much with so much conviction that eventually I will convince you to believe my story and believe my reality. We believe the fairy tales that we tell ourselves, whether it's I'm going to sit down at Om and, you know, manifest my dream life, whether it's subconscious psychological patterning, whether it's looking up to someone like a parental figure and following them like a mentor, but really it's like a manifestation of a child-parent type relationship. All those things are the same stuff. And I made a YouTube video basically saying that good leaders in a business need to have some narcissistic type qualities, because basically you need a bit of that reality distortion field to influence others to follow your mission for the business. The key thing is, where is your integrity in that process? And that's where it goes between like intention and service of others to manipulation and being out of integrity and self-service. And I learned that from one of my mentors, Kerwin Ray. And it basically comes down to your intention. Is it manipulation or is it influence? It's all down to your intention. Is your intention to serve somebody, or is your intention to serve purely yourself? Now, we all have an element of serving ourselves, right? Everything we do is self-serving in some way. But I think it's like, do you wish to serve yourself without regard for the other? Or are you in service ecologically to yourself and to others as well? I think that's the integrated narcissism or narcissistic archetype deployed as an entrepreneur. But people hear the N-word and they freak out. Oh, I had a partner who abused me and blah, blah, blah. And, you know, for someone who's very light on their own psychological work, they're still in the paradigm of good and bad, and narcissists are bad and I'm righteous, but that's disregarding the shadow in that we all have narcissistic traits. We all have an inner narcissist. And if you reject that part of yourself, they will come out in shadow. So we all got it, and we don't have to freak out about it. Loving your shadows is a big part of integrating. That's literally integration. Loving your shadows, being okay with it and knowing that they exist, but then deploying them with consciousness.
Yeah. what's funny to me is, what if the intention is good, but the execution?
Out of integrity? Yeah. Well, good question. Like, would you lie on $100 million pitch deck if you knew it was going to go to a good cause?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I don't know if I agree with that mentality of it being disposable. Yeah, I understand that. I have a different perspective on that because I don't think the rich deserve to be robbed. I agree factually that someone who has a lot more resources has their risk mitigated from investments that don't turn out. But that's not a reality that I want to put fire to, because I desire to have $1 billion net worth, and I don't want to program into my subconscious that having $1 billion net worth means that I'm more likely to have bad actors rip me off. Yeah, so that to me is a bit thick.